Hey there, everyone. My name is Ryan Schul. Welcome to my channel. So I'll preface um, the whole lecture and the dialogue today by saying that the camera doesn't work. I think you can see that. You can't see me. I can't see you. So I don't know what's going on. I'll look into that later, but I think we can proceed with no camera. I think the message can still be delivered pretty effectively. So today I want to talk about how to create a data risk profiler. We're going to use Python, of course, and I think this is a pretty cool exercise and very practical too. This is a way that you can scan through a whole bunch of files. You can imagine files stored on a network drive at some type of corporation, scan through the files and then see what the contents of the files are and look for specific types of things that could be somewhat risky for the organization. Okay, so credit card companies will actually anonymize their data. So if there's some type of cybersecurity attack or some type of security breach, a um, whole bunch of sensitive credit card information isn't leaked out, and you can see, all the names of people, addresses, phone numbers. So a lot of this is abstracted away through some type of um, pseudonym assignment or changing the specific information. It's called PII, personally identifiable information. This is abstracted away so you can't see the individual's contact details and everything specific to that person, right? But nevertheless, sometimes people will store all kinds of stuff in files that shouldn't have that stuff. I've seen people save social security numbers. I've seen people save credit card numbers in files on network drives that just don't belong there, right? So I don't know why that is being done, but it is actually kind of a big problem because it's hard to see on network drives that have hundreds of thousands of files or maybe even millions of files. It's hard to know what the contents of those files are, right? Like you can have a whole bunch of PDF files, you can have Word files, Excel files, text files, you can imagine CSV files and all sorts of different things, right? So if that's stored on your network drive and you want to make sure that you have a low risk environment, this is a very good technique for scanning through one folder at the top, or you can have a bunch of subfolders. You can set this up a few different ways. But anyway, scan through the files, run a big job, and understand what's actually in those files because it's not necessarily what you think it is. Okay, so this will help you to reduce risk from an IT perspective. And there could be old files from years ago that have been sitting around. People left the company and you don't even know what's on your network, right? It could be unmonitored. There's no alert, there's no email messaging system or anything that helps you understand what the contents of those files are. So I'm going to show you a way to try to prevent that and prevent some kind of risky exposure if somebody does have credit card information or social security card information or even people's personal names embedded in these files, right? It should be pretty much anonymized and pretty much, at least if the file is going to have consumers' specific addresses and names, and you need that too when you have to contact the individual. You need that stuff, so that can be pseudonymed away using a couple different techniques, hashing or unhashing. I actually have a video about that, so you can check that out if you're interested to see how to do that. So there's ways that you can go ahead and hide your data and make it harder for cyber security attacks people to get access to that. Okay, so let's jump into that. I have all my notes up here. You can read through that. I'm not going to take you through all of that stuff. So this is the most important part, right? We have SSN. We're using regex, right, to look for a pattern that would represent a social security number. I'm looking for potential credit cards. We shouldn't have credit card information on our network drive. That could happen. I can pretty much guarantee it does happen, but that should be prevented. And we can look at people's specific names. And then I just threw this one in here for good measure corporation. So if you are Microsoft, if you are Apple, you're going to have the name of your company naturally on your network drive, and it's going to be all over the place. So I wouldn't be too concerned about that, but this is just one more variable that you could use to do a search when you're scanning through a whole bunch of files, right? So I'm looking at social security number and credit card. These are the big ones. Names of specific individuals and then names of corporations. Okay, so if I'm going to go ahead and tell the computer to look in the file path. This is a user-defined function. This is DEF. We always start with the DEF. You have the name of the function, and at the bottom we'll have a return statement, and everything in between is the business logic here that we're going to do to tell the computer to open each file. If it ends in txt, if it ends in .docx, if it ends in .pdf, I want to scan it, and if it ends in .xlsx, I want to scan it. Now, obviously, there's other types of files. You can have an XLSB, which is a binary Excel file. You can have an older XLS file. I think that changed back in, when was that? I don't even know, 2007 or something like that. But there's a whole bunch of different formats for Excel. That's the point, right? So you can scan through different types of files because they're all going to behave differently, right? When you try to open a file and the way the file loads into the computer's memory, these are slightly different, right? So the XLSB is going to load much faster than an XLSX file, and there's reasons you might want to use one over the other. So that's really personal preference. We won't get into all that, but we're looking at these 4 different file types. Again, it could be other things. It could be a CSV. It could be a JSON file, HTML file. It could be a Parquet. It can be all kinds of things, right? So you have to pick and choose what's best for you. One thing I will point out with this XLSX file, because these are kind of different. I'm sure if you've used PDF and Doc, it's one big file that loads into that's basically text, right? These are all text files. Obviously, text is text. The XLS file we have to convert to text, and we have to scan through different sheets. So we have to create a small loop here for sheet and workbook worksheets, because the Excel file can have more than one sheet. Okay, I'm sure you're aware that a CSV file will just have one, because it's basically just a text file that opens up into a Excel file loader or browser, whatever you want to call it. But with a typical workbook, you could have multiple sheets, right? So you have to scan through all the sheets. That's why we have this. So for sheet and sheets, and for row and sheets, right? Because you can have multiple rows, and for cell and rows, right? So you can have different levels. If you studied Excel a little bit, there's basically 4 different, what's it called? Not parts, 4 different, I think, properties of Excel. You have the workbook itself, the worksheet, the, what was it? The workbook, the worksheet, and then the row and the cell. Rows are columns and cells. Those are the 4 different properties of Excel, right? So you have to kind of handle that. So I set up a little loop to handle that. So there we go. And then we're matching counts of Social Security number and credit card. These are the 2 big ones. I threw this in here just for fun. I'm looking at people's names. If we have specific people's names in these files and we don't want that, we can search for that too. And corporation, if we want to search for an entity, we can search for that as well. But really the big ones are Social Security number and credit card. So I want to count how many occurrences there are for each. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and run this, hit Control Enter. Basically, it runs very fast. All it does is just create the function right here. And right here, we have analyze file. That's how we're counting the number of records that we're matching on. And we're creating a risk score. Okay, again, this is kind of like a risk exercise. That's how I set this up. And it could be risk prevention, risk remediation. It can be a bunch of different things, right? This is just what I'm calling this thing. And I have the path to my files down here. So when I call this scan folder, everything is going to load pretty quick. I have a progress bar that runs down here, and then everything is going to be converted into a data frame. Okay, so scan folder, if you look carefully, it matches up with scan folder down here, and then this extract text is the name of the function. So that comes down here, right? So it's all linked. It's pretty tightly coupled and all linked together. So when I run this, you'll see the progress bar run, and we get the results. Okay, it takes about a second, so pretty fast. I only have 4 files. Honestly, if you had thousands of PDF files, this is going to take a little chunk of time. So it's probably something you would want to run overnight, not necessarily, right before a meeting where you have to give a report about this. But with 4 files and just a small folder on my desktop, it's pretty fast. But again, if you're scanning through millions, potentially millions, or at least hundreds of thousands of files, this is going to take some time, right? So you have to be patient and run this as an overnight job, or maybe over the weekends. Okay, so let's look at the report that we get here. And I see social security number 2 in this file, so some text.txt. So if I go down here, some text.txt, this is just something I put together. Let me open it and look around, and I do see a social security number there. Okay, so I think this is working, and I see another pattern of a social security number. Remember, so this is just fake made up numbers. Hopefully, this is nobody's actual social security number that's watching this video. But it does follow this pattern, right? So we have 3, then a hyphen, then 2 numbers, and a hyphen, then 4. And that's exactly what the tool found. So it found this pattern. It says there's 2 social security numbers, 0 credit card numbers, and names. And it found some people's names in the file. I didn't notice any names, but I was less concerned about the name. I think it's getting things like whatever user. It could be picking up user and a couple other things. It could be picking up AWS as an entity, Amazon Web Services, Amazon. I think it's detecting that as well. But again, I'm just looking for names, but primarily looking at social security numbers and credit card. So this next file, it says advertising. There are no SSNs, but 1 credit card. So let me open that file and see what that thing looks like. Advertising business leadership. Okay, that's a good idea. And I see, I don't see any credit card numbers. Actually, there is one. Okay, so there is one buried down here, and it follows this pattern, right? So you have 4 numbers in a hyphen, then 4 hyphen 4 hyphen 4, right? So it did find that, so that's good. I think this is working pretty well. And what else did it say? Anything else? Any other risk concerns? Names, it found some names. Okay, that was kind of just a fun exercise. I'm not too worried about that. So this file, it says there's XLSX is actually 1 credit card and 1 social security number. So let me take a look and see what we've got over here. Spring Group, that's a nice name. It's springtime now in New York City. Okay, and what does this look like? We do have 1 SSN number and 1 credit card number, so I would say this is working fine. And we have 1 more down here, upstate New York, and we have 1 SSN and 1 credit card. So let me take a look at this. Right now we're batting 1,000. 3 for 3. Let's see if we can make it 4 for 4. They said 1 and 1, right? 1 Soch and 1 credit card. And it found the credit card. Okay. And did I misread that? I didn't see a Soch. SSN, it says there's 1. I didn't see 1. Okay, I think we had 1 mistake. 1 mistake here. Where's my file? Oh, unless it looked at this HTML link, that could be, there could be 3, 2, 1. I bet that's what's picking up. I didn't even realize that. Okay, let me put 1 more in here and try it again. 3, 3, 4. Let's see if it comes back with 2. So now we have, it's gonna be 1 in here somewhere, and then we have this Soch and then this credit card number. So let me close it, save it, and rerun the exercise. Okay, close that. Close that. What else is open here? Advertising. Let me close that. I think I have the text file open. Maybe, maybe not. Some text is open. Let me close that. Okay. Okay, rerun. So we had 1 and 1. Let's see if we get 2 this time. Okay, so let's run it. Control Enter. Oh, Spring Group is open. Let me close this thing. Okay, rerun. Spring Group. Okay, now it's in a slightly different order. It got it. It got that. So I think it's looking at that long HTML character string as social security number, and that's called a false positive. So in the data science world, that's okay. I mean, you don't really want those. It's not great, but you can't necessarily prevent it either. Okay, so a false positive is okay. It could say there's a social security number. It's actually a HTML web address. That's not a social security number, and that's okay. But at least we know that, right? At least we know what is in the inventory on the network drive, and we know where the high risk issues are. So one more thing that's kind of cool here, we can actually create a risk report. So I create a couple more functions down here to give me the report. This is probably a little bit easier to read. There's the 2 SSNs, and we know they have an issue with a credit card. And I can actually print the HTML report to my desktop because this report is pretty cool. It's pretty fine, but there's no colors here. In the data frame, you can color it. There's actually ways to do that. If you create an HTML file and export it, I think it's actually more user friendly and it creates a very nice interactive report that you can hand out to your stakeholders. Okay, this is the report that I get. Now you have the file, and then you have the counts of all the issues and the high risk over here, colored in red. So high risk would be red. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. And low risk would be medium. And again, we're assigning a risk score and then ranking these in order. So there you go, guys. That's how you take an inventory of files on your network drive, and then whatever you're looking for. In this example, obviously, it's social security number and credit card information that had people's names and corporation. You don't necessarily need this, but whatever you want, you can easily create a regex sample to represent that thing that you're looking for, scan through the network drive, count the number of occurrences, and then you get a pretty cool looking report that will show you the potential risk at your corporation. Okay, so that's it. I'm going to wrap it up there. Thanks for your time today, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.